So water diplomacy can be a daunting term, but it really is just the way water is managed in a way that is inclusive, brings prosperity, and ensures that all the benefits are brought to the table for livelihoods and populations to enjoy. And it is done in a peaceful way, in a cooperative manner, and just ensuring that everybody finds his interest. Yes. So in the short term, that's what the diplomacy is. And in Africa, you know, it is really important because we have so many shared water courses among countries. Yes. And it is really important to cooperate and ensure that there is diplomacy of water resources. And, you know, with the industrialization drive, the urbanization, the boom in demography, you know, it's more than critical to look at this look at these aspects and ensure that in the drive to you know, develop our region or our continent, in the drive to improve our, you know, the well-being of our populations, we make sure that we don't, you know, do one good and produce two bads, you know.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. I would like to chop in.
Go ahead. Yes, please.
Looking at Botswana, Botswana is landlocked.
Right.
And all the water resources that we share with other countries. Yes. And as such, we have, we are party to 4 commissions. Okay. We have the Okacom in the Upper North. Okay. Okacom, Okavango River Commission, that we share with Namibia, that we also share with, we shared with Namibia as well as
Angola? Yes. I thought as much. Right.
And then we also have LIMCOM, Limpopo River Commission. Right. And that one we share with South Africa and Zimbabwe as well as Mozambique. Awesome. And then we have the river basin in question now, which is Ogasacom, that we share with we share it with Namibia, we share with Lesotho, as well as South Africa. Aha. Yes. And lastly, we have ZAMCOM. Okay. ZAMCOM is Zambezi River Commission, which we share with a whole lot of other countries, including Zimbabwe, Angola, Zambia, and Malawi, as well as Tanzania.
Right. And Ms. Julie, what is the rising tide in support for women in water diplomacy?
Yes, you will notice that, you know, for ages we've seen conferences where there are only men that are speaking on panels, and yet, you know, women are, you know, at the bottom working, like Ms. Saniso, she's been a scientist for how many years, but if I was to ask Ms. Saniso, how often does she make it to the stages of at the big events, it will be a very small proportion. So we've noticed that, you know, women are underrepresented at such big events. You know, the voices of women are not, you know, amplified enough. So we thought, how can we really make sure that women's voices are, you know, heard.
Yes,
you know, how can they access to those big platforms? And oftentimes it's not the easiest task, because, you know, in this context with reduction of funding, you know, austerity, you know, it's very difficult to have big teams represented at these events. But the rising tide is mainly to, you know, to drive a movement to empower women to inclusion, accede to decision-making positions, leadership positions, and make sure that their voices are heard. But the good thing about the rising tide, and we are not trying to, you know, to create a world within a world or a community of women only. We acknowledge that men are still at the, you know, at the drive, at the helm of some of these processes. And the rising tide really advocates for male champions to gender equality, for those men like yourself that are, you know, giving the voice to women to share their views, to share their experiences, to share their knowledge, to empower the young generation as well, and, you know, refrain from, you know, putting aside women, because women at the end of the day sideline, yet they constitute 50% of the population in the world. So it's really about, you know, realizing that we must not leave everybody behind. We must tap into all the resource and the knowledge that is out there, and that women are willing to offer.
Right. Mesaniso.
Yes.
Let's speak to the efforts done by government in as far as ensuring women are empowered and are included and are within the mainstream. What are those efforts?
There are a number of efforts that are there.
Right.
We have the National Policy on Gender and Development that was approved by the government of Botswana in March 2015. And the policy was designed to address the social inequities that still survive both economically and socially. And the long-term goal of the policy is to decrease these inequalities in the opportunities and outcomes of the social, economic, political, and cultural norms that we have. And then we also have our vision, the Botswana vision, the 2036 vision, whose slogan is prosperity for all.
Of course.
So it's all inclusive. Its aim is to turn Botswana into a high-income country by building an inclusive and a thriving private sector with a particular emphasis on women, youth, and people living with disability. And as such, it's all inclusive and it's not leaving anyone behind. There are some other achievements, however, such as the revised Botswana Land Policy of 2019. We know that in the past, as a married woman, you would not apply for land without the acknowledgement of your husband, your spouse.
Of your spouse, yes.
And then of late, women are able to apply for land. Even married women can acquire land together alongside with the husband. And then also looking at our tradition, looking at the inheritance. When it comes to cattle and the cattle post, women were a bit left behind. You know that a woman cannot inherit a borehole or the cattle post. It's normally left to the gentleman, to the gentleman, to men.
Right.
Yes. And then we also have the Economic Inclusive Act of 2021, which aims to promote effective participation of women in the country's economic development. And then looking international, we have SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which calls for clean water and sanitation for all. And it is also inclusive, and we do not want to leave anyone behind. Now, also looking at the fact that we do have gender focal persons in the water sector. And the gender focal persons are to ensure that the needs, the aspiration of men and women, the disabled, are taken into account when we plan for projects, when we design projects, and when we implement projects. Why are we doing this? We're doing this to ensure that no one, first and foremost, no one is left behind. And then we also want that aspect of ownership. So that people can own these projects. Yes. Right.
And still with you, Sani, so there are barriers and challenges, of course, that remain as far as women empowerment is concerned. And what opportunities are there now that we get to appreciate through the network in the Orange Senku River Basin? How can this network assist in addressing those challenges, those barriers?
But before we go there, there are some other government programs that are supported to empower women, even though it's a blanket approach. But it's something. It's a milestone. Looking at the Maboho Dingu that was developed by SIDA to empower women and the youth. We're also looking at a a program like Letabile, which focuses specifically on uplifting the informal sector, which has been negatively impacted by its vulnerability and reliance on an active formal sector and movement of the public. We also have the Temolotlotlo. Yes. And Temolotlotlo is a productive output reward-based agroeconomic program whose aim is to improve food security in Botswana.
Of course.
And of late, you also have Tuoletlotlo.
Right.
So those are programs, finance programs that are there to also empower women as well.
Right. Let's address the challenges that are being faced.
Yes.
Right.
The challenges that are being faced at the moment, we know that money is an issue. We don't have much resources at our disposal to fund some of these projects and programs. And then we also have prevailing gender stereotypes and the absence of a comprehensive affirmative action plan that focuses on promoting gender equality in all organizations, both in the public and the private sectors.
Right.
And then speaking about this, sometimes in the past when programs were being designed, you find that it's a one-size-fits-all. It doesn't trickle to the ground. It should be a bottom-up approach, whereby we go into communities, we do the gender analysis to find out who owns what, who has power, so that we can uplift those without voices. And you find that most of the time it's the women. And sometimes you find that also the youth are affected.
Right.
If I can just add a little bit on what Saniso said. I think there is a lot of knowledge, but the knowledge is not being disseminated accurately or appropriately, trickling down to the grassroots level. And also, like she mentioned, the social norms. Recently, I was involved in a study in Mozambique where we interviewed somebody, a male professional, and he said, why do you want to change what God has instituted? You know, it should be this way and not the other way.
And what was the response?
The response was yes, but you know, we need to understand that things are changing.
Right.
They are. If your reference, for example, is the Bible, you need to be flexible and look around you and see how things are being done, and try it out, because I think sometimes people are scared of a situation just because they have not experienced it. But try it out and see if it brings you benefits, to see your spouse, your female spouse or your sisters to be more, blossoming and engaged in the matters pertaining to water management. So just to reinforce the social norms and also to address some of these challenges with knowledge dissemination. With the Rising Tide really advocates for a community of practice where there is experience exchange that is put in place, and at different levels, because we understand that we are not here forever. We'll soon have to pass the baton. How do we make sure that all our efforts don't vanish with the young generation? How do we make sure that the youth understand what's at stake and how to respond to that? So it's really one critical pillar of the Rising Tide I mentioned earlier, the peer-to-peer learning, but also the intergenerational dialogues to understand, to create that passion that we have as the oldest generation, to infuse it into the young generation, and also continue advocating for a better enabling environment for women to find themselves in the engineering space of things.
Right. And peaceful water cooperation. I want us to zone into that. What does it take to build peaceful water cooperation?
It takes trust. We should trust each other. It takes cooperation. You make commitments and you have to honor the commitments that you've made. There also should be a legal instrument that is guiding you towards those that kind of cooperation. Is there any legal arrangement that we have with other member states which you share the water resources with? So there should be clear objectives and a clear mandate. So there should be trust, there should be cooperation, there should be collaboration.
And there should be a legal instrument to ensure that everything smoothly runs. I don't know, Julie,
yes,
if you want to add to
I fully agree with what Taniso said. You know, there are lots of agreements, but are they being put in place just for the sake of being put in place, or are they really being followed? So the issue of compliance, enforcement really needs to be looked into, and also, you know, realizing that, you know, we have a common value, we have a common resource that we should use. You know, it's not like this country wants the resource from for hydropower and disregarding the effect that it has on the downstream country, for example. So that shared value should be placed ahead of the national strategies or drives that each country has. You know, so you have your national plans, your national avenues to grow as a country, but beyond that, or should I say above, it should be the shared value. You know, this water should really bring us together. It should bring prosperity for all of us. So it's really important to have water at the center of all the negotiation. And she mentioned trust, transparency in the way we discuss, because you know, if I take it to national drives, you know, every country has its own agenda. I would put it that way. But you need to be open enough to share with the other country what you're planning on doing, you know, in a certain period of time, so that, you know, the other country knows, okay, maybe I should hold you know, this particular drive that I wanted, or initiative that I wanted to drive, just so I give space to my neighboring country. And that really prevents tension and conflict.
Yeah, it's sometimes it's about reaching a compromise and reaching a consensus. It's all about consensus building, because sometimes you need to compromise there, but at the end of the day, you want to reach a win-win situation.
It's essentially take a step back to take 10 steps forward.
Exactly.
Essentially. And you know, with everything, there are obstacles. And I just want us to just sort of just speak to those that are so obvious, and how we can mitigate against them in terms of peaceful cooperation. Julia, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll have to still tie it in, you know, in the general context. I mean, we see the geopolitics that are at stake. We see beyond national agendas, there are other agendas, you know, in the bilateral, multilateral cooperation avenues. So sometimes those, you know, agendas item trickle down to the regional and, you know, can jeopardize the stability and cooperation. So it's really the onus is really on the countries to make sure that, you know, yes, you have to, you know, adhere to some of the agreements or, you know, the resolutions that you have taken with cooperating partners, but you really need to find a balance and ensure that, you know, you stay in the middle and you don't lose on either side. And that's, I can say it's not the easiest task. So, but continuous dialogue really really helps. And you know, and once you are not able to reach a consensus or compromise, like Saniso mentioned, it's always an opportunity to reach out to third party, you know, neutral entities that could facilitate the dialogue, you know, based on science, based on data. A data acquired in a consensus manner, because data can also be a bone of contention in some cases. But if you are not sure in terms of you know, how the data was acquired and whether it benefits you in detriment of the other country, call upon a third entity to discuss this in a neutral kind of platform.
And to think that the data is very, very important to have. Go ahead, yes. Data is very, very important.
We have challenges in data. We do not have enough data. And sometimes for us to overcome these challenges, it's bilateral. We need to do things jointly. we need to acquire this data jointly to agree on this data and how to acquire it. And also accessibility. Data accessibility is also important. Is it readily available?
And perhaps that is why, you know, data as a whole topic on its own can become a bit of an obstacle, in that collectively we need to collect the data together, such that we're able to do the rightful decisions based on what we know from that collection. But if you don't have access to data, then that becomes a hindrance in terms of peaceful cooperation and the like. Our conversation is going to have to come to an end, but I would like to have us reiterate the importance, rather, of having this that is actually currently happening out at Avani, right? Yes, can we quickly just speak to that? Oh, right, great. We've got a mouthful here.
I'll start.
Go ahead, Ms. Adisa.
It is said that if we're going to have the Third World War, it's going to be on water.
Right.
And in the initial, I've alluded to the fact that we are water scarce. We don't have enough water resources. And all the waters that we have, we share with other countries.
Of course.
Now, when we don't do this jointly, when we don't collaborate with them, it could lead to tension. And this tension could lead to war. But we don't want war, we want peace.
Yes.
So the collaboration, the cooperation around this water diplomacy is to ensure that there is peace and security in the countries.
Right. Ms. Julie?
Yes, I really just want to commend Botswana as the host for this August occasion, and the Commission Orasicom for really tailor-making the process to their advantage. Because, and I don't know if I mentioned it, and it was mentioned by you in your introduction. So the Women in Water Diplomacy originated in the Nile Basin, and it was later formed in Central Asia and Afghanistan, and recently in Northern America. But I think the process that the Orasicom drove was really, you know, particular in such a way that they saw leadership at different levels.
Yes.
You know, not only the diplomatic level, but also the community and the local. So that was really groundbreaking for this, for the network. And I really would like to commend Botswana and the Orasicom for really, you know, making sure that they walk the talk and they do not leave anybody behind.